All right, it's time to explore Screenlife filmmaking in this episode. Now, Screenlife is interesting because it is different than other subgenres of found footage, mostly because it's not really a subgenre. You can do a zombie movie, paranormal film, an exorcism movie, and they can all be Screenlife. Like found footage movies overall, Screenlife movies are more about a style than about a genre. And the name is apt because Screenlife movies all take place on a computer screen with a screen of a smart device of some kind. Now, this is obviously one of the newer forms of found footage, and they could only exist after the late 90s and the early 2000s because before that, technology was not as much of a central part of the human interactive experience. But once people's daily habits became directly connected to the computer, Screenlife films were born. Now, the most fascinating part for me is that these films incorporate many different types of storytelling at the same time. They use video, of course, but many of them also use on-screen text, still images, internet windows, and hyperlinks, almost anything you can think of to do on the desktop of a computer. And that's very cool because it's a completely different kind of film language from anything that existed before. Now, these stories provide multiple different elements, all happening at the same time, in different places on the screen. And your job as an audience member is to watch all the different pieces and then make the leap to understand how they all connect to tell the overall story. Now, that's a big deal. And I don't think people give found footage movies enough credit for being really groundbreaking in the history of movie storytelling. Anyway, back to Screenlife films specifically. The first major one was 2002's The Collingswood Story. It set the template for a lot of what would come later in the genre. It involved live video calls between characters who slowly learned about a terrible secret or growing danger, something that would be a key part of most later Screenlife movies. There were a few examples in the year after The Collingswood Story, like the work of Eugene Kotlyarenko. He was an early Screenlife innovator with movies like Zeros and Ones before he made the very cool movie Spree in 2020. But there were two big years that really defined Screenlife movies. The first one was 2014 because two of the most high-profile Screenlife movies were released to theaters. The first was Open Windows, which featured Elijah Wood as a fan getting wrapped up in someone's dangerous obsession with the celebrity that he loves. In the same year, we got Unfriended, which is a supernatural revenge film that happens live on a girl's laptop. It was produced by Timur Bekmambetov, who directed the Angelina Jolie action movie Wanted. Now, Unfriended and Open Windows had all the elements that define Screenlife movies, and they proved that they were possible to do on the big screen with well-known filmmakers and stars behind them. But the biggest year for Screenlife movies was 2020, and the reason was the pandemic. During the COVID lockdowns, everyone was stuck in their homes and finding new ways to communicate and connect. And that's when the world learned about Zoom. People had parties on Zoom, went to work on Zoom, did everything in real time on a series of video screens. They even made horror movies. 2020 brought the world Host, the first true grassroots Screenlife success. It was made by a group of friends stuck in their homes, and they never got together. The whole movie was recorded in half a dozen separate houses. That's when the dam broke on Screenlife movies. Lots of people were making them during the quarantine and the years after. Now, Host was the film that helped make clear why Screenlife movies have become so popular. First, they're usually inexpensive to produce. Host cost around $35,000 to make, but there are other Screenlife movies made for well less than that. The other thing that Host proved is that you don't need to be in the same physical space with your fellow actors and filmmakers. It opened up a whole new opportunity for filmmakers to create work with people across the world. It's the biggest innovation in film production since the invention of video. So that explains why they're popular for filmmakers to make them, but why do audiences love them so much? I think the main reason is because Screenlife movies are the only ones that truly reflect how we communicate and interact now. Our lives are driven by screens. Our focus is divided across so many things at once. Phone call, text conversation, email, podcast, YouTube clip, all in different tabs on the same screen. In fact, there are probably several of you on another device while you're watching this right now, because that's just how we do things now. And Screenlife movies are the only films that reflect it. So many movies want to ignore technology because it sometimes makes storytelling less interesting or dramatic, but not Screenlife movies. They embrace the technology and they make it a centerpiece of the storytelling. But, that's just my opinion. Let's hear from someone else who knows a lot about this subgenre.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Iannantuono, director of Livescream. Livescream is a Screenlife found footage movie, which means that it takes place entirely on a computer screen. In this case, it takes place on a Twitch-like platform as a live streamer named Scott Adkinson starts playing a horror video game for a bunch of followers and then discovers that as he dies in the game, his followers start dying in the chat. So this was a pretty original concept in 2018. I don't think anything like it had been done before, where this entire video game I built in Unreal Engine 5 to accompany the live performance of Gunnar Willis and then the text performances that happen in the chat, all happening simultaneously in real time, pretty uncut through the runtime of the film. The inspiration for this movie was my own love of video games and Let's Play culture. I had watched a ton of Markiplier and Rooster Teeth and other horror Let's Plays from about 2013 to 2018. I was super into it. It was my primary form of entertainment. And I remember one day I was watching Rooster Teeth's Uno the movie, which was like a 3.5 hour long Let's Play where a bunch of guys played Uno, and there was like this weird meta-narrative happening at the same time, and it was just a really enjoyable, entertaining piece of content. And I remember on my third watch or so of that thinking, if these guys can make a feature-length epic about an Uno game, well, what's stopping somebody from making a feature, like a scripted feature, that was functionally a Let's Play? So that was originally the idea for Livescream, and then over time I just decided to essentially make the video game that he was playing be an homage to a lot of other games that I had liked at the time. I think my favorite thing about Livescream is that a lot of people go into it not understanding or being skeptical about Let's Play culture, or the idea of watching somebody else play a video game. Particularly in 2018, I was starting to get a little frustrated with older people who would look at their kids enjoying Let's Players, or even, people in their 20s enjoying it and sort of scoff at it and say, why would you watch somebody else play a game? Why don't you just play it yourself? And I think that over time, at festivals and in letterbox reviews and stuff, I've seen a lot of people come around to the idea of like, oh, I get it now. Through connecting with the characters in the movie and sort of seeing this highlight reel of moments, as he plays the game, and how it can kind of be entertaining to watch somebody else play, and how you connect with the person doing the playing. This is all just to support the thesis that this is a legitimate form of entertainment, and that this is actually something that shouldn't be scoffed at, and that, you might be able to connect with a different generation by understanding it.
If you want to survive, you need to keep your eyes on the screen at all times. And now, we've got some dedicated watchers who have seen it all and have some brilliant observations about Screenlife movies. Let's hear from these found footage experts and superfans in this episode segment of Found Faculty.
One of the unique challenges and aspects of found footage movies is the level of authenticity and believability that is required to make it successful. I think you could take the most wonderful Oscar-winning performance in a dramatic film and put that into a found footage movie, and it would stick out like a sore thumb, because there is a certain level of naturalness that is required in a found footage movie to kind of sell that illusion that what we're watching is real. It's not a movie, it's real. And I think one of the subgenres of found footage that this is the most emblematic in is Screenlife, because not only are you dealing with people's performances, but you're dealing with a believable way for people to interface with technology. And I think about this specifically in terms of mouse cursor speed. That's the thing I always look at, because I feel like often in Screenlife found footage movies, you have mouse cursor on the monitor moving around very smooth. You can tell it's an asset done in post, where it was just this animated little cursor needs to move from here to here, and it's this very consistent movement, a slow movement across the screen. Whereas I think more successful Screenlife horror movies, you'll notice that the mouse cursor is this kind of chaotic thing that moves around the screen. It overshoots icons, it wiggles a little when things are loading. The person using it is getting a little anxious waiting. And it's little touches like that that I think just speak to what makes found footage so special.
One of the limitations of a found footage movie is that in trying to preserve the framing device, you often lose the cinema. It's very difficult when making a found footage movie to consider the cinema aspect of it while also making it look like a tape that someone found. And I feel old because I just said tape. We live in a day and age where people don't often see movies on the big screen. A lot of people are doing the bulk of their movie watching at home on a tablet, on a cell phone, on their laptop, on a computer screen, and the Screenlife subgenre actually makes that the optimal way to view it. Because not only do you not have to consider the cinema of it all, but when you turn out the lights, fire up a computer, and watch something that takes place on that screen, it ends up being that much scarier.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Wechter. I am the writer-director of E-Demon, the supernatural cyber thriller. E-Demon is about a group of former college friends who get together from across the country via a video chat. They're sort of reuniting, having a drink, having laughs. One of them plays a prank and inadvertently releases a demon that had been locked away several hundred years earlier by their ancestor in Salem, Massachusetts. And from that point forward, the demon possesses more and more people to accomplish their malevolent purpose. The inspiration for this movie, which was originally called The Viral Demon, was honestly just the practical thought of what can I do on a relatively small budget. Years earlier, I think back in 2007, I made a short film about a couple on a video chat. She's witnessing through the video chat a home invasion. Because it's a video chat, she can't physically do anything. It was a really fun, simple way to get it accomplished. Super small crew. Several years later, I wanted to make a feature, and I took the idea I had years earlier, thought, okay, I can do this via a feature through several characters in several locations. One of my favorite things about E-Demon is the camaraderie we had with both the cast and the crew. The friendships that the characters have on screen reflect that, and it really does feel like these folks have known each other for a really long time and have all this history.
This part seems familiar, but that's not all bad. It's time for us to talk about those moments that pop up a lot in found footage films, in our segment called Familiar Flourishes. Now, this week's flourish is a story point that had its origin in thrillers, especially the kind of techno thrillers that guys like Michael Crichton used to write. But I actually think that Screenlife movies are the most appropriate place to use them. I call this flourish the hidden folder. Now, that name probably gives you a strong idea of what it's about already. Because these movies generally take place on a desktop or a small device, most of the action and story development happens on the screen itself as opposed to happening to the person. What I mean by that is the environment of the story is the computer. So that means any secret revelations come from in there. And those secrets are usually contained in what I call the hidden folder. Now, sometimes that's a literal folder, like the one that the dark web access was hidden inside of on the computer from Unfriended dark web. But sometimes it's about access to a secret website or program that reveals information that the user didn't previously know. This happens in both missing and searching, when characters gain access to someone's social media and email accounts and discover some shocking new information about the people in their lives who are missing. And when the characters find and access this folder, that is really when the shit hits the fan. Secrets are revealed, enemies get even more deadly, and sometimes the revelation even completely changes our expectations and the things that we thought we knew as an audience. But it's not all bad news in there. Yes, there are devastating secrets that will probably change the way you see or feel about someone that you thought you knew, but that same information will probably provide some key insight or piece of information that will lead to our character solving the problem that they're dealing with. Might be the email address of a human trafficker, or incriminating photos of the person who kidnapped your wife. Hell, it could be something that the ghost of a deceased person has been trying to get you to find and expose so that they can finally complete their unfinished business and pass on to the next world. But whatever it is, it will be equal parts pain and freedom for our characters. It's a great and effective moment for a character and for a story, and that's why so many of them use it. So that's our familiar flourish for this Screenlife episode. Now let's hear from a filmmaker who made another outstanding Screenlife found footage film.
Hi, I'm Navin Ramaswaran, and I'm the director of Invited.
Hi, I'm Monica, and I am the writer of the movie Invited. Invited is a Screenlife film, and it is about a woman named Linda we're watching from her computer screen. Her daughter, Jessica, is getting married, but she's eloped with a man that they've never met before. And we kind of watch as everything unravels, and we find out that the man she is marrying is actually part of a Russian cult with deadly intentions.
What drew me to Invited was Louie La Vella's screenplay, which really made use of the Zoom format to the movie's advantage. And it really heightened the sense of dread and the sense of claustrophobia with our characters being trapped within a Zoom window, watching something horrific, witnessing something horrific happen live, and being unable to do anything about it. So that sense of helplessness and dread is what really drew me to this movie.
I loved the idea of writing something that felt a little claustrophobic. Like we're only able to watch from one person's space, that one room where she's sitting in and the computer that she's working from, and what could be created that could kind of unravel in front of us in that world. And because we are so digitally reliant, especially now, we're always on Zoom calls nearly every day, it feels like, and it just felt like a really cool place to have a horror film.
We shot the movie almost like a play. We shot the movie in long takes, long chunks, versus individual scenes. So this gave it a sense of energy and a sense of realism where our actors were all interacting with each other live on the Zoom call, watching the wedding ceremony unfold. So the wedding ceremony we shot before and put it together so the actors had something real to react to. And they were watching it for the first time, so their reaction to the horrific things they were looking at was pretty real.
We had so much fun on set. Our actors were amazing, and so like we just became a family over the days of that shoot. In writing the characters, I never really imagined who would be playing them. So once we actually found our actors to play these characters, it was like a dream to watch them sitting there with my script and reading the words I wrote.
All right, we've now arrived at the Lost and Found segment, where we talk about a few of the more popular titles in the Screenlife genre that are definitely worth watching if you haven't caught them yet. And then we'll move on to some lesser known ones that I think are definitely worth your time to check out and recommend to your found footage friends. Don't forget that we all like different things. So some of these movies will be your jam and some won't. That's fine. We're a big tent here. We want everyone to have things they like. So if it's not for you, just let it go by. Check out the next one. Let people enjoy what they enjoy. And now, we're starting with the more well-known films, and our first one is the 2018 film Searching. Now, unlike a lot of titles on this list, this one is one that has some recognizable names on the screen. The star of the film is John Cho from Star Trek and the Harold and Kumar series, as well as Deborah Messing from Will and Grace. The story in this one is framed like a mystery, with John Cho as a father trying to find out what happened that led to his daughter's disappearance. Because this was one of the first prominent mainstream films to use the Screenlife format, there was a bit of a learning curve. It only took 13 days to shoot the movie, but it was over a year and a half of editing to complete it. The film was a success, and it led to a series of films that all take place in the same shared universe. Now, most people know about the 2023 film Missing, that it's in the same world, but they might not know about Run from 2020 is also connected. Now, this is a solid and entertaining movie, and it's definitely worth checking out. Next up is 2020's Host. We discussed this one a bit earlier, but just to quickly cover the plot. During the COVID lockdown, 5 friends get together over Zoom for a fun night, and one of the friends recruits a medium to lead a virtual seance. After the seance, strange things start to happen to the friends at each of their homes, and the others can only watch helplessly as it happens because they're unable to leave their houses. Now, the origin of the film is a fun one because director Rob Savage pulled a virtual prank on some friends on a Zoom call, scaring them into thinking he was attacked by a zombie child in his attic. He recorded the prank and he posted it online and it went viral. And that was where the idea for the film started. He even had some of the friends he pranked from that previous video star in the movie with him. This movie was one of the most talked about films when it was released on Shudder, gaining a huge following and basically becoming one of the defining films of the COVID lockdown era. If you haven't seen it, you definitely should. And our final of the more well-known films is 2014's Unfriended, another one we mentioned briefly earlier. The story revolves around a group of friends on a video call together when strange supernatural occurrences start happening. All of the activity seems to point them to Laura Barnes, a girl from their school who committed suicide a year earlier after an embarrassing video of her was released and her fellow students bullied and mocked her ceaselessly. As the friends start dying in gruesome ways, secrets are exposed about their involvement in the Laura Barnes tragedy. Now, the movie cost about $1 million to make, and it made a truly impressive $62 million in theaters. An unrelated sequel, Unfriended Dark Web, was released in 2018. So that's it for the more well-known titles. We're going to take a quick break to hear from another great filmmaker, and then I'll be back with the more obscure and lesser-seen recommendations.
Hi, my name's Matt Toronto, and I'm the director of the found footage film Face to Face. Face to Face is about 2 teenagers who rekindle a childhood friendship online. Madison is sort of the A-list party girl, and she vows to help Teal, who's sort of a social outcast. She vows to help him win friends on social media. And as their relationship deepens, Madison falls for Teal. But this also forces Teal to reveal the true underlying reasons for the bullying he faces at school. That sets off a chain of events that motivates Madison to reveal her own devastating secret, something that she reveals in a disturbing cry for help toward the end of the movie. I was away from my family directing a play at the University of Utah for about 6 weeks. And in order to stay in touch, I would have video chats with my wife and my kids every night. And one night I remember remarking, if we were talking about something interesting, this could be a movie. My days were free and most of my rehearsals were at night. I started writing. And what emerged was this conversation between two teenagers, and it started to take on its own sort of life. And it became a very powerful mode of storytelling if we just capture the real life conversations, or what I hope appears like the real life conversations of two teenagers. Not a lot of people know this, but we shot Face to Face in about 8 days, which is a really Herculean effort. So we had to move very quickly because we had a very limited budget, but everybody sort of pitched in and it became this really exciting time where we were just like, can we finish in time? And one of the things that allowed us to do that was that each scene really only had 2 angles, Madison's side and Teal's side of the conversation. And so what we did was shoot some of the scenes were fairly long, and so we would shoot them all in one go. And that allowed us to move fairly quickly. And so what we did is rehearse a little bit ahead of time, and then we would just take it all at once.
Okay, it's time to get into our 5 lesser seen and discussed Screenlife movies. First up is Deadware from 2021. This film comes from director Isaac Rodriguez, who has made several very cool and unique found footage films in the last few years, from Unknown Visitor to A Town Full of Ghosts. This one is a period piece set in 1999 as 2 friends talking over webcam run into some mysterious and seemingly supernatural circumstances when they start playing an interactive game on their browser that could be haunted. As someone who's old enough to have been using computers back in 1999, it's fun to see modern technology used to capture the style of that moment. And while it's not 100% accurate to the era, it does the more important thing of getting the feeling right. There are some great moments of slow burn horror here, where you're watching the grainy pixelated image of the online game waiting for the inevitable scare to come. It is a lot of fun, totally worth your time. Next up is Untitled Horror Movie, also from 2021. Now, this is another film that was born of the pandemic and the lockdown, similar to Host, but this one has some laughs along with the scares. Now, the plot revolves around a group of 6 actors whose popular TV show is about to get canceled, so they decide to make their own supernatural horror movie. However, in the midst of it, they accidentally end up conjuring some kind of actual spirit, and it starts working its way violently through the group of them. Now, there are a couple of familiar faces here in small roles. Aisha Tyler is in this. Also, earlier we talked about John Cho in Searching, and I mentioned that he was in Harold and Kumar. Well, his partner, Cal Penn, pops up in this movie. Horror comedy isn't everybody's cup of tea, but if you like it, you should definitely watch this one. Now, our next film is a really interesting film, not just as a found footage film, but on a story level. It's called Resurrected from 2023. The story is set in a near future where the Catholic Church has discovered a technology that allows you to resurrect people from the dead. They've made the technology available to everyone, but you have to join the church in order to access it. Now, as crazy as that sounds, there's even more wild stuff that comes up in the film. It's rare that a movie features a story about religion that goes to some of the places that this one does with its conspiracy storyline. This is another film from producer Timur Bekmambetov, who has been a huge champion for the Screenlife movement. Definitely check this one out, and the next one, which was also produced by Bekmambetov. The next one is the 2017 film Profile. Now, this one is a little different from the other films we've talked about. The others have mostly been horror films, while this one is more of a thriller with political themes. The story follows a journalist who creates a fake online account, pretending to be a recent Muslim convert in an attempt to learn about ISIS recruiting methods for a story that she's working on. Now, that's exactly what happens. Someone contacts her, and she ends up getting involved in a lot more than just an expose. Now, this movie wouldn't work without great performances, which luckily this movie has. In particular, I really liked Shazad Latif as the man who recruits her. You've probably seen him on Black Mirror or Star Trek Discovery. The movie executes a thriller really well in a subgenre that could be really difficult to maintain suspense, and you should definitely watch it. And for our final film, I want to talk about something that is a kind of meta Screenlife film. It came out in 2019 from director Cody Clark, and it's called The DVD. So here's the thing. The movie was originally released just as a DVD, and the gimmick of the film is that the DVD has a short film on it called Artifact of a Love, along with a bunch of special features and behind-the-scenes material. The story is actually weaved throughout the special features as well as the short film, and that allows the viewer to control what parts they watch in what order. And I don't want to spoil anything about this wild journey, but I will tell you that this is definitely a horror movie. It's just one that's unlike any that you've ever seen before. Now, I know that you're probably thinking, how am I supposed to watch a movie called The DVD if I don't have it on DVD. Some of you probably don't even have a way to play physical media anymore. But here's the good news. The director, Cody Clark, was kind enough to upload the entirety of the contents of the DVD as a single video on YouTube. And he even put the names of the different chapters and time codes in the description on YouTube. So that means that you can watch the whole thing right there, courtesy of the filmmaker himself. It's definitely different from most other Screenlife movies, and it won't be for everyone. But I love when someone tries something new and surprising that stretches the storytelling possibilities of the medium. So if you also like fun and surprising movie-going adventures, definitely go find this one. So that's the end of our Lost and Found section. I hope you're excited to go hunt down some of these titles and give them a shot. When it comes to Screenlife movies, I am a huge fan, and I know you are too. There are lots of fans out there with great recommendations, and that's why it's time for our segment, Fan Favorites.
Scandals, betrayal, lies, death, and gamers just trying to stay alive? If that sounds like a movie for you, then you all need to be watching the Screenlife horror film Live Screamers. It is all about a video game that is testing gamers' survival skills, literally. And in the midst of all this, betrayal at every corner, secrets just coming out of nowhere, and death and great gore and effects. And the twist? Again, if this all sounds like stuff you like, you need to be watching Live Screamers.
If you just can't get enough pointing and clicking and watching those Screenlife movies and you want more recommendations than the ones that we covered on this episode, then there's just one more place you need to click. If you head over to Letterboxd, you can find a list of 50 Screenlife found footage movies. There's bound to be at least a few on that list that you haven't seen yet, so add them to your queue to check out. And of course, as always,
your system has been hacked by FoundTV. Do not attempt to override.
Hey everybody, my name is Louie La Vella, co-founder of FoundTV. We created FoundTV because we're filmmakers ourselves, and you always hear things are by filmmakers, for filmmakers, but we really are. We're filmmakers ourselves, and as we navigate the waters of Hollywood and filmmaking with traditional ways of making movies, we know there's a very big, as we are as well, indie horror film push. And we needed to fill a gap on becoming part of a community, not just a streaming platform. So while the streaming platform is great, it's in 130 plus countries, and that in itself is just one hub for us as filmmakers to create and put our found footage films on. So it's really, really created for ourselves, all of us as found footage filmmakers and fans, to be able to play in, to enjoy, to create, and to grow. I really think one of the coolest parts about found footage is the community and the fans. It's really nice to see fans just enjoy indie film. A filmmaker can have an idea and create, no matter the budget, put it out there, and the fans will watch. And like any movie, people will love and not love movies, but they'll still respect the fact that a film came out, give their 2 cents in their review, that's okay, but then watch the next one, whether it's the number 2 or 3 or the other film the filmmaker creates. I love the fact that the community just embraces the opportunity to watch films that they like. I think to me that's the best part about found footage. It's so cool.
FoundTV is relinquishing control of your system. Stand by.
they're making new Screenlife movies every single day. So if you think of any movies that should be on this list and they are not there, leave a comment on that list so I can add it. And just before we wrap up, it's time to hear the last goodbye from the fantastic found footage filmmakers who shared their thoughts and their films with us in this episode. Special thanks to all these incredibly talented filmmakers.
Thank you so much to you guys for supporting found footage films.
Thank you so much for supporting found footage films. Whether you're a horror fan, a cinephile, or just open to different kinds of entertainment, I appreciate all the wonderful, warm words and messages of support that I've received.
Thank you for supporting found footage films and indie filmmakers like me. I hope you go watch Face to Face and enjoy the movie.
You know, found footage horror and Screenlife horror is such a fun, energizing new subgenre of horror. And it's thanks to viewers like yourself who support us and support independent filmmakers making these movies that we are able to create more of these movies for you guys. So thank you so much for watching and supporting. If you liked Invited, please help spread the word. Go on IMDb or Letterboxd and review the movie. And if you didn't like it, that's okay. Tell us why. You know, let's get a conversation going. That's the kind of movie I want to make, movies that people talk about regardless of whether you loved it or hated it.
Thank you guys so much for supporting found footage films. This is a really cool subgenre that is really exciting because it gets to breed all sorts of different creativity, and people are inventing things all the time, new stuff. I would implore you to support these filmmakers financially. I know we all like, watching things on Tubi for free, and luckily we do get paid for that. But buy a Blu-ray, find some VOD rentals, find a filmmaker's Patreon or a coffee, buy some merch. We all have these opportunities to be supported directly by folks that aren't just, ad rev pennies or whatever. So if you love found footage, support the people who make it, because this is a really grassroots genre, and that's one of the great things about it.
That brings us to the end of the Screenlife episode of Found Footage Finds. I hope that you were able to find some titles that you wanted to check out. And more than that, I hope that you learned something cool from the filmmakers and the experts who shared their thoughts with us. And if you have friends who love movies but don't watch found footage, do me a favor. Choose your absolute favorite found footage film to watch with them. The best way to get more good found footage movies is to help grow the audience by sharing with friends and family. And remember, today's found footage fans are tomorrow's found footage filmmakers. So go grab your camera and get shooting, and maybe I'll be talking about your film next time. Thanks for watching.